Hi everyone, Joe March here, also known as Sorcerer, and today we're going to talk about Gnosticism, and I was torn as to whether to make this a Sorcerer lecture-style video where I talk about my thoughts on Gnosticism, or whether to make it a video-watching video where I watch videos about Gnosticism and talk about it. And then it hit me that I have done a video on my old channel about Gnosticism, where I explained my thoughts on it then. And it hit me that obviously what I need to do then is rewatch that video and then have my new thoughts on it now, which can lead into watching other videos and having thoughts on those as well. So you kind of get both. You're going to get my old video on Gnosticism and my thoughts on it now, followed by a number of videos on Gnosticism and my thoughts on those. So let's go. All right. So that's a bit extreme. I remember I was trying to be a little more edgy back then, and I got called out because my intros like this would be kind of like edgy feeling, and then it'd just be like me deadpan talking to a camera. So let's see if that's what happens here.
Hi everyone, Sorcerer.
Yeah, 100%.
Today on Psycho Theory, we're going to do something a little bit different. Instead of me giving you my...
Look at this handsome devil. Look how young I am. Look how thin I am. Oh my God. Those were the old days, man. But where'd my beard? I don't know. I like myself better with a beard.
My opinion about some
more like a wizard
concept that we're going to think about just to get into that kind of philosophical space.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to be talking about a philosophical concept that I don't have a strong opinion on. Namely, we're going to be talking about Gnosticism and the demiurge. Now,
but we're only going to be talking about it for 6 minutes and 15 seconds. Actually, they're already 30 seconds in, and we haven't started talking about it yet. So we're only going to talk about it for like 5 minutes.
Christian or a Gnostic, so I don't have any strong feelings one way or another on this theory, but it is a theory that gets brought up a lot amongst people who work as practitioners of magic, so I felt it was a good thing to bring up here, primarily so that we could speak about it in the comments.
Cool. Let's get to it.
Gnosticism is a modern term for the collection of ancient religions whose adherents shun the material world in favor of the spiritual world.
Mm-hmm.
Most often when we use the term Gnostic, we're referring to Gnostic Christianity, but not always. There are also Gnostic Luciferians and other forms of Gnosticism.
Sure.
Most
Gotta be
commonly when
inclusive.
talking about the Gnostic viewpoint, there is a belief in something called the demiurge.
Here we go.
The demiurge, whose name was derived from a word meaning craftsman or artisan, is often believed to have played a role in the construction of the earth and possibly even the human race. To many Gnostics, the Abrahamic God, such as Yahweh or Allah, is in actuality the demiurge.
Mm-hmm.
Unlike most modern Abrahamic thinkers, the Gnostics view the demiurge as a sort of villain. Once pure souls were forced into human vessels and are now kept prisoner on this planet, according to many of their views. As such, the demiurge is not the creator of our original souls, of our original selves, but rather of these bodies and this materialistic world that we find ourselves trapped in. To the Gnostics, this world is to be shunned, and the spiritual is to be sought. The Gnostics also believe in a grander deity that is above the demiurge. This being, often called the One, is actually all of us and everything that exists. It is the true creator of all of our souls, life, thought, existence, etc. To them, this is God, and the demiurge is a false god. In a sense, the demiurge is a warden keeping us in prison and pretending to be our father. People who have sworn allegiance to the demiurge have created churches and religious texts that merge the concepts of the true father with the demiurge, thus claiming that the demiurge is himself the true father.
Mm-hmm.
As a result,
I mean, this
most
is pretty
Gnostics
good.
believe that
I honestly thought that I had done less effort on this. Like, I didn't remember what this video actually looked like. I was like, oh man, I probably come in here and I'm like, demiurge means that Christian Bible God, bad. End of video. Like, that's how I remembered this video. I didn't realize I actually did my research back in the day, guys. I didn't just blow shit off the cuff like I do now.
Institutions have got everything wrong. These institutions have been misinformed and unwittingly worship the demiurge as if he was God. In a sense, to the Gnostics, they believe that the devil is posing as God, and that the various religions of the world are actually in honor to him. This leads me to the purpose in actually bringing all of this up. The theory that I want to pose today is, what if the Abrahamic God is real, and what if he is in actuality the bad guy? This is what the Gnostics believe. To put a little bit more meat into this conversation, I'd like to take a moment to talk about something called the archons. Many Gnostics believe that the angels and demons of the various religions are actually all the same type of being. These beings are called archons. According to one particular Gnostic sect, there were 7 archons that represented the different forces of the universe.
What is this picture?
Each held a
Did I stick archons in Google and this weird egg of people came up and I was like, good enough? That's got to be how that happened.
relation to one of the 7 planets. Yaldabaoth was the leader of the archons, and some believe he was even the demiurge himself. Also known as Saklas or Samael, he was represented by Saturn. Io, who is often revered by magicians, is represented by Jupiter. Sabaoth, who is spoken of in the Old Testament, is also represented by Mars. Astaphanos, a female archon often compared to Astarte, is represented by Venus. Adonaios, similar to the word Adonai for God, is represented by the Sun. Elaios, whose name is similar to the word Elohim, is represented by Mercury. And lastly, Horaios, who is often compared to Horus, is represented by the Moon. These 7 archons can appear in many forms, and often serve the demiurge in one manner or another. The same sect also spoke of 5 rebellious archons, whose names were Paraplex, Hecate, Arioth, Typhon, and Iactanabas. If
That's
what
a hard
the
one.
Gnostics
That's
believe
a
is true,
tongue
then
twister.
not only are the Abrahamic religions fooled, but also many magicians are fooled into working with these archons. Some may work with the rebellious archons, while others work with those in league with the demiurge. So what are your thoughts on all of this? For me personally, this doesn't change very much. The idea that perhaps there's a false deity pretending to be the Abrahamic God really doesn't make a difference in any of my working, and the idea that the entities I work with could be archons really doesn't change the way that things work. That said, I'm not Christian, and I don't have
that's kind of still true, because I think if you're a Christian and you believe the Christian God is the God and all the rules of Christianity are what you're supposed to do, this has a bigger impact on you than if you're not Christian like me.
any kind of a belief structure based around Christianity, so these things just sound like wild speculation to me. But there are many out there who find value in this information, or at least the...
Honestly, since this time period, I find the information more interesting, more fascinating, as I've heard people's thoughts who are actually Gnostics, because this video opened me up to being able to talk to people who were actually Gnostic or who were researching Gnosticism far more than me. And so I have a lot more interest in this topic now than I did back then.
thoughts that it provokes. And one thing that does trouble me about it is the idea that we are prisoners here on this planet.
Mm-hmm.
It's not something that I've believed before, but thinking about it makes an odd sort of sense that kind of troubles me. So what are your thoughts? Are the archons real? Is the demiurge real?
And I would say now that I would think of the planet more like a school where you're here to learn lessons. I don't know that there's necessarily a lesson plan. Like a lot of spiritual types will say, like, you have a contract and you have a plan and whatever, and I don't believe that that's true. I think it's possible that whatever your spirit is did make a plan with other spirits and you guys are here playing that out, but I think that's possible, as in, like, a spirit can make a plan and then come here. But I don't think all spirits make plans and then come here. I think it's that people who have had that experience were people who had those plans. And so they're like, oh, this is it. This is how it works. And it's like, no, that's how it works for you because your spirit had a plan. I don't think all spirits have a plan when they come here. I think some of us are improvising the shit out of this. But we still have goals when we come here. And the goals are to learn certain things or accomplish certain things so that we can experience them, and those experiences can flow back up to the spirit, oversoul, God, whatever you want to call it, that's up on the other end. That's kind of what I think now, in a very, like, simplistic version of what I think. So I don't think it's a prison, but I understand why you would think that, especially if you don't have connection back like that, if you don't have that experience of feeling into past lives and the higher self and the greater self to see this sort of pattern of learning that's happening across what seems like separate lives, but it's actually one long life. Then it would feel like you're being punished sort of for no reason, whereas there are reasons. And it's not a punishment, it's a lesson. So I guess, honestly, at this point, I don't agree with the overall Gnostic sentiment that this is a prison world and that there's a warden god or any of that stuff. But I do find fascinating the idea that a large number of these forces that control what is what here aren't here in a loving capacity. They're here more in a authoritative capacity. And maybe that's a better way to examine this than to say specifically that it's a prison or something like that.
Is the God of the Bible really just a pretender, taking the place of the real God? Are gods real at all? Let me know what you think in the comment section below. Thanks for watching. If you liked what you saw, please
look, I used to do the like, share, subscribe thing. Wow.
If you'd like to stay updated with
you know what? It was a more popular channel back in the day, so I guess maybe that works. And also maybe researching all your topics instead of just taking your gnosis and spitting it out on the screen is actually a good recipe for success. Hey, who knows? So interestingly, that video I made about Gnosticism ended up getting other people to learn about Gnosticism. I only did kind of a minimal amount of research just because I wanted to dip my toe into understanding Gnosticism before making that video, and then gave my opinions on the overall concept in it and opened up the discussion. But I know people who are friends of mine now who said they watched that video and it made them go down the rabbit hole of learning Gnosticism and understanding what it was. And they tell me stuff about Gnosticism now that makes it more interesting, more exciting, and more engaging. So as simplistic as that video is, I think it was a good gateway into getting people interested in it if they were people who were going to be interested in it, and it led to me learning more about it through them. But let's see some other videos on Gnosticism, and I'll try to formulate an overall opinion on where we're at now that this is something that people talk about more readily online.
According to the old tradition, the creator of the world, the demiurgos, was a blind demon who thought he had made human beings as unconscious as possible in order that they should not see the imperfection. But the god of the spiritual world was quite different. He never made material creations because that was beneath his dignity. Only demons could work with dirt, and he saw the mystery of those blind human beings and sent his son in the form of the serpent in paradise to tell them they ought to change. They ought to eat the forbidden fruit in order to become conscious and see the difference between good and bad, knowing good and evil, as the text says. So, the Son of God made his first appearance on earth in the form of the snake in paradise, giving good advice to the first parents. For certain Gnostics then, the serpent is equated with Christ, a positive messenger from God, bringing illumination to man.
It's really interesting to me how in Gnosticism, they flip the script. Like in traditional Christianity, you have a benevolent God who created all these people and who has a heaven and all that sort of stuff. But in Gnosticism, God forced souls into physical bodies to kind of imprison them here in a prison world. It's a very interesting thing. And when you add the fact that they still see Jesus as positive and that Jesus is like the serpent and things like that there is the Son of the true God of light, Jesus, who's trying to get you to be the way that Jesus actually taught stuff, and that the evil God is the Old Testament God. It really is a way to rectify, if you believe in these figures, them existing in the same world and getting rid of certain paradoxes or hypocrisies that exist within the Bible. I find that fascinating. I also find it interesting what that would do psychologically to you. So, for Christians, where they're just like, the good thing is up there, I got to do what the good thing is. It's a very obey religion. You got to do what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to believe what's taught. You're not supposed to question. You're supposed to have faith. There's a lot of things that I personally don't like about that, but I understand the value in that as well. For Gnosticism, you kind of question everything and take it to the other extreme, where since up is now down, the Creator God is only the creator of the physical world and the physical bodies, but not the spirit and the soul, and he's trapped you there. It has this sort of adversarial aspect to it, where your life is about struggling against this other force with the help, secretly, of another force coming from higher. So you're sort of, I know the truth, these other things are against me, and I need to find a way to get myself into the right states, despite all this badness, all this evil, all this sin in the world. It seems very, very tumultuous. It's a huge struggle to live at all in a Gnostic viewpoint, I feel like, because you feel almost like embracing your virtue is required in order to break out of this sort of prison. But I can understand, especially in the old days of Christendom, how you would end up in this place. You would say, like, it's oppressive, there's this push against what's real, and you just have to fight it with all your being while kind of keeping hidden about what you know and what you believe. It's very telling about the time periods both these religions come from.
Most have heard of Christianity, but have you heard of the Gnostics? Gnosticism isn't about religion. It's about direct inner knowing, an intuitive experience of the divine that bypasses external authority and dogma. Gnostics believed the truth wasn't found in temples, priests, or scrolls. It was encoded inside of you. They taught that the physical world is a lower illusion, a kind of divine simulation. The true God is source consciousness, beyond form, gender, or personality. What most people worship as God is actually a false creator, a lower being called the demiurge, who shaped the material world and keeps souls trapped in it through control and ignorance. The way out? Through gnosis, awakening to your divine origin and escaping the illusion of separation.
It's interesting, too, because if you look at it from this point of view, I mostly agree with everything. I do think that worship of a biblical figure like the God of the Bible is a misdirect. It isn't, you're not worshiping what actually created us, what we actually are. You're missing the kind of concept of the greater whole. Now, some Christians don't. That's why it's hard to say this, because some Christians don't have this problem. Some Christians just replace that figure with the all, the eternity, whatever you want to call it. And they will even say that Jesus is pointing to that when he says things like the kingdom of heaven is within you, because you are it. Like you're part of the all. Like, and they can even point to things like the idea of something being all-knowing as being, it is all of us, so it knows all of us, and all-loving because it is all of us, so it loves all of us, that sort of thing. But to do that is to take aspects of the Bible and sort of rewrite the way they were taught. In other words, you can do that if you believe that that's what Jesus' real message was and it was corrupted by the church, but you can't follow the church's teachings and believe that unless you're just doing mental gymnastics to make it work. It's okay to do that. It's perfectly fine to do the mental gymnastics to make this working spiritual path from what is otherwise a sort of broken spiritual path. But the point being that the idea of a God-man, which is like the Yahweh figure that creates this world and is its boss, is not the way any of this works. And if you can see through that, you're kind of doing what the Gnostics are talking about. Now, the way that you understand that, at least the way that people like me understand the way things really work, is through what we like to call gnosis. But that word even comes from Gnosticism. It's the idea that you have visions, you seek, you experience the divine through spiritual experiences, and then from that you make up your own mind about how this stuff works. And that's somewhere where me and Gnostics 100% match on how we do things. I think the only place where I question Gnosticism is in the belief that these archons, this demiurge, A, exist as they say, and B, are an evil force. Because in my experience, a lot of what we think of as evil forces are just our shadow. They are aspects that need to be reintegrated into the self and made whole again. In other words, they're broken, but they can be fixed. In fact, you may not even want to say that. They're misunderstood, and if they can be cajoled back into being reasonable, can be brought back in to make a person whole. That's how I see a lot of what people would call demons as well, that they're aspects that need to be understood, transformed, and brought back in once they're purified. And I'd say if archons existed, they'd just be a bigger version of that concept. And the Gnostics kind of see it more like just subvert them, just go around them to get back to the light. I can't say that that's wrong, but that's just where we would disagree on that. And if the demiurge did exist as like an actual negative force, I would tend to lean toward what I believe it's the Valentinian Gnostics believe, which is that he is a redeemable figure, that the end goal should actually also be to bring him to the light, to have him reformed and reintegrated and things like that. Because I follow a path of integration, of self-knowing, individuation, which requires a lot of shadow work. It requires knowing of the self. It requires accepting negative aspects and finding ways to utilize them in positive ways. And because of that, the whole world to me looks that way. Of course it does, because the way you live is the way you see the world. So from my point of view, the aspects that make up my personality, my portion of the all that is, I see the world through that lens. So Gnosticism, as is never going to quite look right to me. But again, we're very close. Like I can understand it. I can dig it.
So basically, you're the divine fragment of the infinite, tricked into forgetting, but capable of remembering. The Gnostics view Jesus as a master of gnosis, a divine messenger sent to wake us the heck up. He came to reveal the hidden truth that we are all children of light, trapped in the illusion of matter and fear. And Mary Magdalene, she was not a prostitute, and she wasn't a sad character. She was a spiritual equal, if not superior, to the male disciples. In some Gnostic texts, she's also called apostle to the apostles, and she understood Jesus on a deep soul level. Some say they were spiritually united, sharing sacred union, the divine masculine and feminine merged. Many early texts show her receiving esoteric teachings from Jesus that the other disciples didn't understand.
And I think Gnosticism also helps if you are very Christian and breaking out of it, because a lot of the concepts blend what I would consider to be occult concepts in with Christianity in a very good way. Like you see the masculine, feminine there that they were talking about, and the divine union, things like that. You can pull magic and occult into Christian thought through Gnosticism. Like they don't conflict when you're in a Gnostic viewpoint. But I guess the thing I always worry about in Gnosticism is the adversarial nature that it leaves you with, the me against this demiurge part of it, because I feel like you're at risk when you do that of being against parts of yourself that you see in the demiurge, because we project ourselves into everything we see. So you could, instead of learning to integrate your shadow, project your shadow upon the demiurge and be like, all these things that I don't like are the demiurge, and so I'm not going to integrate any of those things into myself. And that'll halt your progress if you do that. But I don't think that all Gnostics do that. I think plenty of Gnostics are able to see the flaws in themselves, what they would call flaws, to, rehabilitate those flaws into things that are good, and to accept them about themselves, and to move forward and become better people and experience life in the way you need to in order to advance. And I think that they can, at the same time, believe that there are forces out there that would seek to stop them or whatever, without projecting their flaws onto them. I just think it's risky, because you could end up doing that, and that would slow your progress.
Gnostic texts were written between 100 BCE and 300 CE, during the early rise of Christianity, especially in places like Alexandria, Egypt, a hub of mystical fusion between Greek, Egyptian, and Hebrew teachings. But here's the twist. As the Roman Church began consolidating power in the 4th century, it wanted order, hierarchy, and control, not a bunch of mystics running around saying God is within you. So, in 325 CE, at the Council of Nicaea, many Gnostic texts were declared heresy. Teachings of reincarnation, divine feminine, and inner sovereignty, scrubbed, replaced with obedience, sin, and salvation through the church. So Gnostic communities buried their scrolls to protect them. Fast forward to 1945 in Nag Hammadi, Egypt. Farmer digging near caves finds jars filled with ancient codices. This was the Nag Hammadi library, including texts like the Gospel of Thomas, which are sayings of Jesus, no crucifixion narrative, the Gospel of Mary Magdalene, where she speaks profound wisdom, and the Apocryphon of John, a wild cosmic creation story with the demiurge. This find literally reshaped everything we thought we knew about early Christianity. It revealed a hidden side, one where Jesus didn't start a religion, he sparked an awakening.
Yeah, and if you think about it, because this is history, the church burned all these teachings. The church sent people to kill these people as heretics. The church went to different nations, and anyone who didn't convert was killed. That doesn't sound like a good organization. And the Gnostics kind of saw that and went, look at this. That's the bad guy. And so I get it. especially if you start to see through the bullshit that is religious dogma, and you start to recognize that there are people today, like these preachers that preach about, prosperity gospel, where they're like, give me your money so you can get money type of shit. When you start to see through this stuff, you start to go, some of this is predatory. There is this nature of keeping people down in order to siphon their hard-earned gains, right? And as you start to see that, it's very easy to see the church and the teachings as evil. And Gnosticism gives you a way to take that feeling and move it toward a specific entity, like the demiurge, as opposed to looking at the entire thing as bad, where you can start to take the good parts of the religion out and keep them while separating them from the bad. And I think that's what it's good for. I personally didn't need Gnosticism in order to do that. And it's why I'm always hesitant to talk shit about Christianity directly, because I know Christians that are awesome. I know Christians that pull that thing apart. They pull the Bible apart. They believe in certain things that Jesus said in a very spiritual way, and they're very cool people. And they definitely, to me, seem like they're progressing along the path perfectly fine. And I know others who take the Bible super literally. They'll grab stuff from the Old Testament and use it to try to force people to be the way they want them to be, and they're horrible individuals. So the religion can produce both types of people, and I think that can be hard to accept when you first start to see through this. Whereas Gnosticism gives you a way to say, okay, some of those people are deceived by the demiurge. In other words, it's not their fault. And the other ones that see through it are getting true gnosis, true understanding. And that's kind of not wrong. So, I don't know. I think it can be very helpful to you if you're in that place, if you're in that space, and if you need that in order to get there. But I've never needed it because I just kind of saw through it as the Bible seemed like bullshit to me. And then my entire lexicon, cosmos, whatever you want to call it, comes from other things like ancient Babylonian stuff and occult studies and stuff like that. So it's spirituality and things like that. So my own, I guess you would call them religious beliefs, don't come from Christianity. And that's why Gnosticism, specifically as written, doesn't appeal to me in every single aspect of it. But I definitely get it. I definitely think it's a step in the right direction, if nothing else.
What if I told you Adam was not the first human and the real first human was a god? See,
Hell
our
yeah.
story begins at the very top of reality. Not with some bearded old man on a throne like some kind of cosmic Santa, but with an infinite living light that no physical eye can ever see. The secret book of John calls this ultimate source of everything the One. So this true God, also called the One or the invisible spirit, is totally beyond words, beyond concepts. So it reflects on itself and contemplates. Each thought it has becomes like a living being. Okay, and his first thought is called Barbelo. And she's not some dainty assistant angel. She's the mother. She's literally the first thought of reality. So what happens next? It says the father looked into Barbelo, but what that means is that the mind thinks about its first thought, and that generates the child. The first perfect human appeared through the power of the father, the mother, and the child, the autogenes. This was a direct projection of the highest mind in the universe through awareness, intention, and will. His name is Adamus. See, the first human wasn't a sinner. He was a light bringer. What if I told
I had to put a Morg video in here because right now he's the one that's blowing up the spot when it comes to Gnosticism. Like, I like this guy. I enjoy his videos. I've been following him for a while. He has, I guess in the past couple years, started talking about Gnosticism and merging that into spirituality in a way. But he is doing a thing where he takes the Gnostic ideas and then blends them with something more like what I would believe, where there's integration and things like that. And that combination is very appealing. It seems like a very good path toward the stuff that I also agree with. So I find what he does real interesting. And if you are someone watching this who's like, man, I kind of want to learn more about Gnosticism, but from a spiritual point of view, I would say check out Morg's latest stuff. It's really good.
So you've heard about Gnosticism. You know the world's a trap, but now you're asking, how do I start? Step 1, go inward. Gnosis begins with silence, introspection, and brutal honesty. This isn't about belief, it's about direct experience. Step 2, detach. The archons feed on fear, desire, and distraction. Let go of the material illusion. Step 3, seek the light. Meditate, read Gnostic texts. Question everything. You're not just learning, you're remembering.
Here's the thing. I don't disagree with any of these steps. Again, the need to say like the archons are eating your fear, or they're driven by fear. I don't need to believe that extra layer in order to understand that finding ways out of fear and into love are the path. So it isn't that like believing Gnosticism is against what I believe in anyway. It's just that there's extra steps I don't need. But if you need those steps, if you need that push, that pressure in order to get there, this will definitely get you there, because all of these steps are good.
Take the first step towards gnosis. Like subscribe and hit the bell.
What?
The journey starts.
The first step toward gnosis is subscribing and hitting the bell. So this is why you may watch me sometimes go and click a like on a video, and other times I don't, even if I'm agreeing with the video. This type of shit is why this one didn't get a thumbs up. I'm like, come on, man.
Author Elaine Pagels describes gnosis as an internal discovery that generates an insight. For gnosis involves an intuitive process of knowing oneself. Yet to know oneself at the deepest level is to know God. This is the secret of gnosis. If you haven't already, as your own hero's quest gets going, you might even start, as I did, to purposely forget a lot of useless data that no longer serves you. Think of this process as defragging and detoxing your intellectually bloated system. Contrary to the party line Matrix mouthpieces want you to believe, the more meaningless garbage you leave behind in the dustbin of your personal history, the freer and more empowered you become to blow this popsicle stand with a single finger salute in epic gonzo fashion. We should treat our minds, wrote Henry David Thoreau, as innocent and ingenuous children whose guardians we are, and be careful what objects and what subjects we thrust on their attention. Read not the times, read the eternities. The main idea here, one I simply can't overstate, is that it's okay to delete your information overload. Okay to follow your inner guidance out of here as you come to discover more and more of and about yourself on your way into the undiscovered country.
Cool.
Otherwise,
I dig it.
You'll remain hemmed in by the external map of and for being that's constantly downloaded into the deceptive foreign operating system you mistake for your mind. If that sounds weird, believe me, it is. Just wait until we get there in Chapter 4.
Yeah, I like it. And you notice how there's sort of like a rebellious nature to the way this is put. And that is a thing I see in Gnosticism all the time. So if you kind of want to pursue your spiritual path forward, but with a side of rebellion, then Gnosticism is actually a really good way. I think that's who it appeals to the most. A lot of the people that I know who follow this are interesting individuals who have that sort of rebellious attitude, who want to like upturn the apple cart, so to speak, of the way things are done. And I like that. I find that very interesting. I am not that type of person so much, but I enjoy those type of people. So again, if you're interested in Gnosticism things, I would invite you to investigate it more, just like people who watched my old video investigated it more, and find out for yourself what it has to hold for you. And I don't think it's a bad option among all the options for paths in the spiritual journey. I want to thank you guys for your time on this one. I hope you enjoyed a more in-depth look at videos instead of a funny look at videos, although there was a little bit of humor here and there. And until next time, safe travels.